Assalamu alaikum, you're watching Views and News and I'm Faisal Rehman live from our Islamabad studios. Today we'll be talking about a very major development, and that is about the killing of Khalid Kharasani, the number 2 in the TTP ranks. Now, interestingly, he has been eliminated, and I think that is a big achievement as far as Pakistan is concerned. Other than that, as we all know, that the talks that started between the government of Pakistan and the TTP leadership eventually yielded no results. There were 4 major demands by the Taliban side. They wanted to open up an office in any neutral country, plus they wanted their prisoners to be released. They also wanted that Sharia should be imposed in Pakistan, and on top of that, since we did not let them in fact come up with this kind of an idea that this is what the government is going to do. But having said that, on 9th of December, the ceasefire was off, and again what we witnessed attacks on the Pakistani soil. And again, when we say that the Tehrik-e-Taliban Afghanistan should take notice of this and they should make sure that TTP should not use the Afghan soil against Pakistan, perhaps that is something which is beyond their current, I would say, capacity, because they believe that TTP is going to be very productive with them against the IS chapter present in Afghanistan, ISK as they call it, the Islamic State of Khorasan. Now, interestingly, the TTP can join hands with the Al-Qaeda or perhaps with the Khorasan. Interestingly, that is going to be a huge loss or perhaps a great problem for the Afghan Taliban government. But having said that, I think Pakistan is the only country that can support the regime of the Taliban, and things can be neutralized out there. But since, we'll be talking about the current war against the Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan, what needs to be done now and how to move forward. This is going to be the issue today that we'll be talking about. Let me quickly introduce you to our panelists. We have with us in our studio on my right is Ali Sarwar Naqvi Saab, needs no introduction, as a former ambassador, senior diplomat. Naqvi Saab, pleasure to have you, sir. Thank you so much for your time. And we have with us Shaukat Paracha Saab. Again, Shaukat Paracha Saab needs no introduction, senior anchor person, senior journalist. Thank you so much, Paracha Saab, for your time, sir. And we have with us Mr. Karel Vereycken, joining us from Paris, France. Thank you so much for your time, sir. Pleasure to have you in the show. But starting off from you, sir, as we all know now, Khalid Kharasani, one of the major, I think, TTP leaders and perhaps most wanted as well. He has been eliminated now, sir, and I'm sure that is going to give a lot of boost to the Pakistani government, sir, because at the end of the day, there was a lot of criticism going on by the political parties, especially who are in the opposition, that Pakistan should not talk to the TTP, because these are the people who are involved in the killing of innocent children and are law enforcement agents and so on and so forth. Now, finally, sir, because they were trying to mix, I think, water with oil, that wasn't possible. Eventually, the ceasefire was over on the 9th December, and now we also learned that Khalid Kharasani has been eliminated. So, primarily, the war is on. Your take, sir.
Yes, in principle, I am opposed to negotiating with violence-oriented groups, because they are not ready to abide by the civilized norms of trying to achieve whatever they have their objectives through normal means, through negotiations or discussions, and instead they believe in killing and pillage and destroying lives, property, and causing havoc, which is completely contrary to any norm of behavior. So, that having said that, I think it is fortuitous or quite a good development for Pakistan that the number 2 of the IS movement, of the TTP movement, has been eliminated today. This news comes while we sit and talk, and it is something that we should be very satisfied with. the TTP or any such group have no sense of responsibility. You see, the Tehreek-e-Taliban Afghanistan have run a government at one time, and they have a certain way of dealing with other governments, of dealing with other parties. They have held negotiations with the Americans in Doha. So they have a record of or experience of acting with responsibility.
Correct.
Now, the TTP, the Tehreek-Taliban Pakistan, seems to have no sense of responsibility. They undertook this ceasefire and then they violated it. Why? Because they don't want to agree on anything with.
So primarily, it's not about the principles, sir. It's about the money. It's about the dollars pouring in.
Yeah. So these are just extortionists, people who are wanting to be given money to be kept at bay, and that is not something that any responsible government or any sensible government should do. So I am sorry, but we should not have undertaken any negotiations with them.
So you believe that initially it was a wrong move by the government, sir, to talk to them, to negotiate with them. So same point to you. So your take on that.
Thank you very much. I think it's a big news today. Big news for all those who sacrificed their lives or who fought against these terrorists, you know, and who forced them to flee from Pakistan as they were hiding inside Afghanistan. They were taking refuge over there. But there are multiple questions that are arising in my mind. Number one, who killed this man? The man who is spokesman of the TTP, who killed this man? How he was killed? If he is killed by his comrades, then it means again good news for Pakistan that there is an infighting among these terror groups who are hiding over there. Or if they are killed by the Afghan Taliban government, that also has a lot of meaning to it. And the meaning is, as Afghan Taliban, they are trying to convince the world that they will not allow their soil to be used against any other country, neighbors or beyond neighborhood, Pakistan or Iran or Central Asia. And if this man Muhammad Khorasani is killed by the Afghan Taliban government, then again it's a very good, you know, message from inside Afghanistan, from the Afghan Taliban government. So this is very important, that
talking about the commitment,
you know, this is very important to know how he was killed and who
was behind it,
who is behind it. You know, number two, he was based. He had a strong hold in North Waziristan Agency. When Operation Zarb-e-Azb, you know, was launched, and very successfully these terrorists, you know, they were forced to be eliminated, or they were forced to leave North Waziristan, or for that matter Pakistan, Mohmand or Bajaur or Khyber, you know, because there were Khyber 1, Khyber 2, Khyber 3, as you remember,
yes,
you know.
remember.
So after that, these terror groups, they had their sleeper cells inside Pakistan. They had their pockets here, and that's why Raddul Fasad was launched by Army Chief General Qamar Javed Bajwa on the basis of, you know, certain information, as we say IBOs, information based operation. So such an operation, which I believe still continues, I'm talking about Raddul Fasad. This is the pressure of such operation, that these terrorists, they were unable to have a comeback in Pakistan, in some other parts of the country, maybe Karachi, maybe Baluchistan, maybe some other erstwhile FATA agencies, but due to Raddul Fasad, they were forced to stay over there. As far as talks between TTP and the government of Pakistan, which were there for a month or so, and the ceasefire was agreed and ceasefire was broken after 9th of December. As you remember, last week DGISPR, the military spokesman, very categorically stated that the ceasefire has ended and now the operations are going on, you know. And many people had a sigh of relief that, okay, the unconstitutional, illegal demands of the TTP that, as you very rightly said, I mean, a terrorist group is asking for a political office, you know.
Yes.
What for the government of Pakistan should allow it? If they are asking something beyond the Pakistani constitution, then how can a democratic government?
All the 4 major demands, I mean, that included the release of prisoners, that also, you know, you just mentioned about the opening up of an office in a neutral country, imposing Sharia and their version of Sharia. And last but not the least, they are also against the merger of FATA with KP.
I mean, look, you know, merger of FATA, when FATA was being merged, many people in Pakistan, especially in KP, they were also saying that
even Maulana Fazlur Rehman sahab.
Even so, these are political things. But taking on the security forces, attacking those who are securing your life and property, and you know, every second day, every third day, our soldiers are being targeted by these outlaws, by these terrorists, and they are pointing, you know, guns to them. So these terrorists, these commanders, if they are eliminated inside, it's very important to note that he is killed in Nangarhar. Nangarhar means Jalalabad. Jalalabad means just, you know, 20-30 minutes away from Pakistan. Then to the north of Nangarhar is Cunard. North of western side of Cunard is Nuristan. These are basically the provinces where these terrorists are hiding, and whenever they find any opportunity, they come towards Pakistani border, they attack Pakistani security forces, soldiers, and they run away. So elimination of such a big terrorist is a good news for Pakistan.
I mean, I totally agree with you that. Now coming to you, sir, Mr. Karel, obviously you heard what the 2 gentlemen in the studio just talked about. Now again, a lot of people believe that negotiations with Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, they were not, you know, that it wasn't an appropriate step. A lot of people were against it, including the opposition parties in Pakistan, and a lot of people, so-called the liberals also. But sir, having said that, now as far as Tehreek-e-Taliban Afghanistan or the Afghan regime is concerned, they have some very genuine and legitimate concerns also. First and the foremost priority is to eliminate Al-Qaeda, but they believe that if they go after the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan and their hideouts inside Afghanistan, whether they are in Cunard or they are in Nuristan or they are in Nangarhar for that matter, or the bordering area in particular, they could join hands with the Al-Qaeda or the IS Khorasan, and that could be a huge problem. So they believe that yes, the negotiations should be the step forward, and then they also initiated that. But eventually, sir, it yielded no results. The ceasefire was off on the 9th of December. There were so many attacks on the Pakistani soil, sir. So many military personnel were also martyred. On almost daily basis, sir, we would be hearing these news and we would be talking about it. But do you think whatever has happened so far, sir, is right? No negotiations with the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, and operation is the way forward?
Well, I think, of course, I'm not sufficiently aware of all the specifics of all these infights you are mentioning, but I think we should not forget also the big picture, which with the Schiller Institute we keep fighting to unblock the 9 billion and to make the Afghanistan government bigger and stronger, so that this problem can be dealt in an adequate way between Pakistan and Afghanistan. Otherwise, of course, you have to go after who's running the trafficking of drugs, of weapons, and where it comes from, the banking complicity. I mean, we all know that mafia and terrorist organizations, they have bank accounts, and this is their weak flank, and we really have to go after them to shut them down. So the idea is that you should remember, in Europe we had the 30 years war, the wars of religion, and then at one point, you know, there was so many people dying from all sides that there was a decision to kind of do a reset, you know, and to create the conditions to dry out the ground where terrorism can prosper. And that's, of course, you can target specific leaders, which can be very dangerous and should be dealt with. But without a global peace agreement between the US, Russia, and China, the whole situation in your region is a little bit hostage of the rest of the strategic showdown right now, the kind of Cold War where you can do some things, but you can't do enough to really overturn the entire dynamic. And that's what I want to bring up.
All right. Another important factor, sir, I would like you to throw light on is perhaps now you believe that the real war has started, because now after the killing of this person, Khalid Khorasani, there is going to be a definite fallout factor, sir, and there could be some sort of a retaliation from that side. There could be killings inside Pakistan, sir. If that is the case, which I am saying most likely is going to happen, so do you think that now it's the time, let's not delay it anymore, that go after the TTP factions, try to eliminate them, share the intelligence with the Afghan Taliban, or at least have some sort of an understanding, and make sure that the threat which is posed by the TTP from the other side of the border should, if not 100% eliminated, should be reduced, to a certain level?
Yes, I think Joe Biden should definitely take up his phone and call the Prime Minister of Pakistan and to work out some kind of negotiation on how to share the required intelligence. I think from the Western side, there are a lot of people which have much more on this, and they should really open up and collaborate with what you are trying to do in your region. And this is a political decision to build trust and to build mutual peace, and not just wait till this and this happens and goes wrong.
Coming to you, Ambassador Saab, as Paracha Saab, something, what he mentioned is really meaningful. Him being killed is important, but who killed him is more important. If it's Tehreek-e-Taliban Afghanistan, sir, then their fear could come true that a lot of people can join hands against those forces which are against the Tehreek-e-Taliban Afghanistan and their regime, number one. If killed by the military of Pakistan, for example, or the intelligence was shared, that is also very important, sir. Third aspect, again, could be a drone strike, never know. Fourth could be an inside job by somebody from the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, and it has happened before also, that their own infighting. So, sir, all these four factors would have a different impact altogether.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Well, I think, yes, you're right. All these possibilities exist. And at this moment, I don't think anybody knows what was the cause of the death. But, I think we should look at the result. The result is good because one major and one very hardened terrorist has been eliminated. And I think the other important factor is that the Tehreek-e-Taliban Afghanistan, which means the Taliban government in Afghanistan, has promised from the very beginning, from Doha onwards, that Afghan soil will not be used for terrorist activities against any party, against any neighboring country. So, if that is a promise that they want to maintain, and they should, because they need a lot of things from Pakistan. They need, we have already given them access to trade, supply of food, etc. They need to get things from us. So, if they have any modicum of realistic policy making, they should help Pakistan in this, and they should not play the role of an arbiter, which is something that they seem to be doing, that they will sit as an umpire between Pakistan and the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, as I said, is a terrorist group which must be dealt with accordingly. So, the Afghan Taliban government should realize that they must help Pakistan by not allowing them to do these activities from Afghan soil. And as has been said just now, that this Khalid Khorasani has been killed in Nangarhar. So this is Afghan territory, and that means that he was operating from there. I think we have to be very tough with the Afghan Taliban on this. We have been placating them in many ways, and rightly so, because they came to...
Isn't it too much to ask for, and during these current conditions, sir? Because, you know, when you talk about the harsh winter, you talk about the economic crisis in Afghanistan, you talk about the kind of threats that are posed by so many other parties, the kind of opposition that is there against the Tehrik-e-Taliban Afghanistan, sir. Don't you think that let them settle and then...
Well, Faisal, what we are asking is not something that they can't do, which is not to allow the Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan to create problems for Pakistan. That is what we are asking.
So primarily not to operate against Pakistan.
That's right.
So that means that you are asking for trouble for them.
Well, I mean, they have to act like a government. They cannot act like allies of different factions or groups or tanzeems. This is not what the Taliban government should be doing anymore. They are now a government, and therefore they should behave like a government.
But they should be accepted then as a government, sir. They are not accepted as
they will
the
be
government.
accepted.
We still call them a regime,
Well,
and our demands are exactly what a government should do.
It is chicken and egg.
It has to be reciprocal.
You see, it's chicken and egg. First, you are saying that they should be accepted, but the others will say that they should first behave like a government. So, I mean, since they need recognition, since they need acceptance, they will have to abide by certain.
All right. Now, Paracha, interestingly, when I was looking at the demands posed by the Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan and the demands by the Tehrik-e-Taliban Afghanistan while the Doha talks, other than the FATA issue, I mean, they're exactly prisoners, release of those individuals. They are also talking about Sharia. They were also talking about the imposition of Sharia in Afghanistan. And interestingly, political office, they had one in Doha, and they're perhaps looking for another, maybe in Doha or somewhere else. So we said, no, we will not accept that. Now, don't you think that the kind of demands the Taliban negotiated with the Americans is something, because obviously it was an occupied country when we talk about Afghanistan. But over here, sir, so it's an absolute no. Whatever the demands were met by the Americans as far as TTA is concerned, good enough. But the second demand, exactly almost the same demand, asked by the Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan, were rejected.
Actually, these are two different things. No compatibility at all. Not at all. You know, this opening of an office inside Pakistan by Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan, if you remember, as I remember very correctly, someone even offered to them. You remember?
I remember, and you want me to take the name of that someone?
I can take the name.
He is our Prime Minister.
Prime Minister and Defense Minister. So they offered basically Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan that we can open your office in Peshawar. I mean, why to blame others? Because there has been a political context of Pakistan. These militants like TTP and others, remember 2013 elections. These militants, these terrorists, they prohibited People's Party, MQM and ANP, that they cannot take out the political rallies and political processions.
We all know that.
And how many were killed at the hands of these terrorists, you know? Look at the example
Bilor
of Bashir
Saab,
Bilor, for example, and so many others, you know, including Benazir Bhutto.
Oh yes.
Who were the assassins of Benazir Bhutto? These TTP people. So when we say that their demands now they are unconstitutional, then why these demands were being supported 5 or 10 years back? Were not that time their existence as unconstitutional? The point made by His Excellency Ambassador Saab, Ali Sarwar Naqvi Saab, is very important, that the soil of Afghanistan should not be used. The Taliban, whether they are the recognized government or they are still not recognized government, but they are the government, they claim to be government, and here lies the difference. And I tell you what is the difference. We used to say that Ashraf Ghani or Hamid Karzai government, they were in collusion with India and they were sponsoring these terror groups, funding these terror groups, and that's why they were operating against Pakistan. Now Ashraf Ghani is gone. Now Hamid Karzai is no more there. The Indian consulates are gone. What the hell is there that Afghan Taliban are imposing these people for talks with Pakistan? And you know where the talks took place? In Khost. And what is Khost? Is the network, is the head of Haqqanis, So Haqqanis,
in fact, they played the major role.
Haqqanis were in North Waziristan when they were titled as Haqqani Network, and now these groups, TTP, where are they having talks? They are having talks in Khost. So Afghan government or authorities of the current Afghan government, they must realize that it's Pakistan that is helping them out. It is Pakistan which has always highlighted their political cause, not the militant cause, but the political cause. When I say these are two different aspects or two different scenarios, American, they were the occupation forces in Afghanistan.
Correct.
So when Afghan, they were fighting for freedom of their own country, they had the cause over there. What cause TTP was fighting against Pakistan military? Why Major General Sanaullah Niazi was assassinated right on the Afghan border? I mean, whether TTP is fighting against some occupation forces? No, this is the Pakistan army. And Major General Sanaullah Niazi was there to defend every inch of this motherland, but he was assassinated over there. So no comparison at all. Your other very worthy guest, Mr. Karel, talked about the deeper regional scenario. That's what I am saying. I mean, if TTP or JUA or other militants, they were supported by the major powers because they wanted a leverage against Pakistan, but now they are gone. The neighbors are gone, Now Pakistan, Iran, Central Asia. One thing is very clear. The Soviets, they had to withdraw. Soviet Union got dismembered, and now Russia is there. I can never think that again Russians will dare to come to Afghanistan. And similar is for the United States, that for 20 long years, at the end of the day, the Americans suffered. Look at their economy.
Yes.
Because if trillions of dollars they were spending on the name of Afghanistan, that's their loss. So they are not coming. We, Pakistan, Iran, Central Asians, and the immediate neighbors, they have to survive in this region, and that's why the mechanism engineered or steered by Pakistan, the neighbors mechanism. China is very soon going to host, the next ministerial meeting of the neighbors. These are the countries which have to stabilize Afghanistan. Along with the Afghan government, whatsoever it is. I mean, if there is no recognition, but for all practical purposes, Mullah Muttaqi, I mean, the foreign minister of the interim Afghan government, he has interacted with whom? The Chinese, the Russians, the Americans, when the Troika Plus meeting was here. And then recently in the OIC, Foreign Minister Conference, correct, he addressed the whole world, because representatives of the all major powers, I mean, Australia, France, Germany, Japan, United States of America, Russia, China, they all were sitting here along with the foreign ministers from Pakistan. Yeah. So practically they are the government, whether there is a formal recognition of or not, Stabilization of Afghanistan is very important now.
I think that is the key question now. Yeah. And interestingly, when you talk about the Afghan regime, sir, obviously they need a lot of support from the Western world also. We all know, sir, as long as the Americans or the Europeans are not willing to support the current regime in Afghanistan, sir, nothing is possible, because obviously Chinese can do to a certain extent, Russians can pull in to a certain level. But as far as the West is concerned, sir, they are the people who set the narratives. They are the ones who impose sanctions on other countries. Now, the role of United States of America is so important that, it seems that, yes, when it is about the Afghan stability, their economic issue should be sorted out. People should get salaries, whosoever is in the health sector or education for that matter, or otherwise in any service sector. They need to, work, and obviously brain drain is one issue, flight of capital is another. A lot of people are not spending, that's another huge problem. Now, sir, the role of, if you want to bring in peace in Afghanistan, that means that there has to be some sort of a relaxation shown by the Americans. For example, the $9.5 billion that are there, that should be released. Not immediately, but like there should be a system, a mechanism. And on top, food crisis that's there, clean drinking water, medical facilities. There's so much that needs to be done. Don't you think, sir, that is also going to give a lot of strength to the current regime to sort out the issues and eventually do what the West wants them to do?
Well, it's a big fight. I think in the immediate terms, the West should recognize Pakistan as a stabilizing force in this whole region and help it and stabilize Pakistan. But also, we have to work on the prices of energy. Look to what happened in Kazakhstan. In the beginning, it was pure speculation. There were people doing bitcoins, and the energy prices in 1 week doubled, and then people were all furious, went in the streets, and then there were some forces, type of color revolution, because some people in the military industrial complex, they wanted to spoil the eventual discussions which started today in Geneva between Biden and Putin. So the stabilization of energy prices will be absolutely fundamental to stabilize also food and health and water and all the basic commodities. You have to stabilize them by stabilizing the currency and by stabilizing the energy prices. And that's in the interest of the West. So far, the West is only shooting bullets in its own feet, because if nothing is done to stabilize this region of Pakistan and Afghanistan, it will become, on the one side, a big wave of immigration, like Pakistan and Iran are seeing already, with many immigrants coming in, wanting to go to Turkey, into Europe. So this thing it's a real time bomb, and we should defuse it. And I'm calling all the Western viewers to join the Schiller Institute so that we can start pushing our government to come back to reason and do what is necessary in this region. Thank you.
Now, when we talk, you were talking about that, obviously one important factor is about, as they say, that Afghanistan's future hinges on Pakistan ties. Don't you think that the role of the government of Pakistan is really important, especially when you talk about the military? Their actions are also, I would say, of a lot of significance. And at the same time, if the West really wants to help rather than create more problems, the role of Pakistan becomes very important, because I think the road to Afghanistan currently goes through Pakistan. Correct?
Yes. The road of world peace goes through Afghanistan and Pakistan, and we should engage in this road. If not, we'll be hell for all.
So let's take the same point further, sir.
Yeah.
The role of Pakistan is very important, because I think when you talk about peace in Afghanistan, sir, obviously the first country that needs to be engaged is Pakistan.
Yeah.
So looking at the current situation, sir, where the army obviously is very much on the same page when it comes to the government. Obviously, I think political solutions are much more long-lasting than the military solutions. War itself is a problem. It can't be a solution as such. But, sir, when it's needed, as they say, sir, war itself is an extension of the political ideology, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, you see, let's not forget first that the West, and particularly the Americans, are very, very sore at this turn of events, at their defeat if you can term it like that, and their failure to establish peace and stability in Afghanistan. So this is a time when they are sulking, as you know, as one would put it, that they seem to be sulking. So we should give them time. We have to be patient about this, and that does not mean we should do nothing. What we should do is what I think Shaukat was saying a little earlier. We have to evolve a regional approach. The countries in the region, and this is what Shah Mahmud Qureshi did some time ago when he approached all the Central Asian states, and then China and Russia. These are the two big powers in our region. So Iran.
Yes.
So we have to work with these countries to make the Taliban government feel that they are not being ostracized, that they are not being isolated, and then to engage them to behave like a government, as I said in the beginning.
So when you say behave like a government, I mean, aren't they behaving like a government? They have their own ministers in place and everything.
No, that is the
form. I mean, what exactly do you mean by that?
That is the form and the structure.
You know, just to be subservient to all the countries, is that what the Americans are looking forward to?
I'm not talking of the Americans. I don't think they should worry about what the Americans want them to do. Of course, they have to be mindful. America is a global power, Faisal, and no country can completely ignore the Americans, whether you like them
Absolutely,
or not.
Sir.
Now, so, however, they should not do what the Americans want them to do. However, they have to abide by certain principles. And then I'll go back to saying that they should not allow their territory to be misused by any group, by any movement. And that is where the TTP comes in. The Afghan government have the form and the structure of government. The Afghan Taliban have the form and the structure of government, I agree. But they also have to have the approach and the policies that should characterize them as a government. They have to engage with the others, which they are doing. But then they should continue that, and they should also have full control over their territory and not let these groups, they themselves are very sensitive to the IS, for example. Why? Why are they not wanting the IS to have any hold on Afghan population? Because that would erode the credibility and the strength of the Afghan established government. So, TTP does not figure in this and should not be allowed.
So, the question is that, Taliban took charge on the 15th of August.
Yes. Yeah.
Almost 3, 4, 5 months, let's put it this way, sir. Now, Paracha Saab, do you think that during these 5 months, this element of Al-Qaeda in fact emerged? They were already there, but we never heard about them as long as Ashraf Ghani was there. The moment he escaped, the Taliban took charge, and suddenly we got to know that there are so many factions. They were already there. If you look at the statements of Mr. Hamid Karzai, those mystery helicopters, those individuals being brought in from the Middle East. So, sir, and who was doing that? The West, the Americans in particular. So, sir, they have created these monsters for a certain reason. And now they want them to eliminate the same monster. I mean, and they are in fact supporting the monster, the other monster. So, they are in fact supporting the civil war in Afghanistan. Even the current conditions would get worse.
That's a nightmare for future of Afghanistan. That's the only problem inside Afghanistan. Otherwise, you know, when you say on 15th of August, Taliban captured Kabul, in fact, there was no capturing. They simply entered.
They walked in.
They walked in, you know. There was no civil war.
No resistance.
There was no resistance, no bloodshed at all,
Correct.
you know. I mean, otherwise, for the last 20 years, the Western governments or the narrow ISAF, etc., they were raising up strong, over 380,000, you know, strong Afghan national security forces. But suddenly they crumbled, you know. They waned away, you know. One thing that was talked about when the Afghan Taliban thought of having a dialogue with the United States, it was at that time the threat that Excellency was talking about, the threat of ISIS. No Afghan will ever like to have international terrorists occupying their country. This is beyond any doubt, whether it's Hamid Karzai or Ashraf Ghani or Mullah Hassan Akhund or Mullah Abdul Ghani brother or Mullah Mutaki, you know, or Salah or Haqqanis, you know, they will never like it, you know. And that is one factor, that they had a talk, that they had a sustained dialogue with the Americans, and only thing that Afghan Taliban agreed was about their soil being not allowed for terror activities against otherwise they never agree for a ceasefire, for example, and they never agreed for a dialogue with Ashraf Ghani government, you know. The only thing that they agreed that was that they will fight against the terror groups, you know, that ISIS or others, whosoever they are, Qaeda, etc., etc. These Talibans, they had a rule in Afghanistan for 3 years back, you know, 20 years back, and you remember there was no incidents of violence during their period, you know. At that time there was no violence in Afghanistan. It was a smooth functioning of the government, you know. Even drug was not being exported from Afghanistan. So they have a network.
Even they had put a ban on cultivation of opium.
Extra.
Yeah.
So their network is there up to the areas where Ashraf Ghani or Ahmad Karzai writ was not there. And that's the question that Pakistan has raised with the Afghan Taliban government. You remember, I remember during the initial days of Afghan Taliban government now, Interior Minister Sheikh Rashid Ahmad publicly said that we have handed over a list of more than 300 wanted terrorists to Afghan Taliban, and that's why in fact they offered that we can have a dialogue of your dialogue with Taliban. It means when they wanted to broker an agreement with Taliban of Pakistan and the government of Pakistan, it means they had some liaison with the TTP people, and that's why
obviously
and that is why Pakistan, according to some reports, Pakistan has made it clear to Afghan Taliban government that TTP issue is a test case for you. These are the reports, you know, that Pakistan has made it very clear to Afghan Taliban government that the issue of TTP is a test case for that, and I think today the Afghan Taliban government has passed this test. That Mohammad Khorasani, who is spokesman of TTP, is second in command of TTP.
This is just the beginning, Paracha.
Just the beginning, and a beginning in the right direction.
All right. So last question now put to you, sir. Obviously, a lot is there in the plate of the Taliban, sir. The Islamic movement of Uzbekistan, IMU, they have their own concern. Tajikistan, they have very legitimate concerns. You talk about the Chinese again.
ETIM.
I mean, that is something very important. TTP, Pakistan, Iranians have their own very, I would say, genuine concerns regarding Hazaras and other people living out there, especially the Shias. So, sir, a test case for the Taliban, as far as the elimination of this person is concerned, sir, I think the right move in the right direction. But this could be the beginning of some very hard times, not only for the Pakistani government, sir, but also for the Afghan regime as well. Your take, sir, last point.
Yes, as you say, it will be not a picnic. It can be very tough, but I think it's worth doing the fight, because if this can be won, it can be an absolute turning point of shifting to go out of a war situation and to win the war, but to win the war by building peace. And this is I fully agree that this, as far as I understood, that this new shift, you know, it will help. It will definitely help to convince the new configuration, and it opens up new possibilities for mutual development very clearly.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Karel, for your time for our show, sir. Thank you so much, Paracha Saab. It's a pleasure having you, sir. Thank you so much for your time as well. And that's all we have for this hour. I'll see you, inshallah, tomorrow at 8:05. Till then, you take good care. Khuda Hafiz.